Growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner here, and you are listening, as if you don't know, to the Lionhearted Dental Podcast. Thank you for joining me. And I have several things I want to talk about tonight. But I'm first going to say to you that the theme of this week's podcast is the preparation for you of 2022. We have 6 weeks left, so it's time to talk about it. And I want you to think of me right now, those of you that are into this. And I don't know your level of into this, but I know some of you are very much followers and appreciative of this format. So I want you to think of me, which I've always wanted you to do, as somebody that is vested in you and really wants to give you great advice, who really wants you to succeed. I mean, if you're looking at me right now, can you tell that that's earnest? Can you tell that it's real? Because it's funny I'm saying this to you tonight, because I didn't realize that I believe this podcast is the beginning of my 4th year. I didn't know that. I didn't. I thought I'd only been doing these for 2 years. It's pretty remarkable for me because, look, I don't know what a successful podcast draws. I've said it to you before. I don't. I try to find out. I know I'm never listed in the most popular, which I find kind of unsettling because I'm used to being pretty successful at everything I do. But I know it's grown, particularly in this past year. And it's cool. I'm talking to you right now, and I know you like this style. But it's cool because I really do get feedback outside the dental industry. And that doesn't surprise me because the principles I share with you, many of them are universal. I mean, having a relationship-based practice is a universal success formula for any business. So I believe, and I don't go back, to be honest with you. I don't remember the last time I went into my library of podcasts and looked to see what I'd said in the beginning. I am as straight shooter as you can get. I told you that the only monetizing that can come from this, if some of you end up coming to my courses, which I do mention. By the way, I have a course. By the time you see this podcast, I will have given it. My final course of 2022. So thanks to all the people that came from all over the United States to learn live implant dentistry. You understand what we do, right? That is on patients, not on a plastic model, not on a dead cadaver. I don't think there's any other type of cadavers, by the way. Not on a pig's jaw. I have a remarkable agreement with New Jersey's Board of Dentistry that allows me to teach those who are qualified, and that you have to have taken a maxi course or have a GPR somewhere you're not walking into my office touching an implant drill for the very first time. That said, it's a remarkable course, and I'm very fortunate to meet many of you that end up attending. Thanks again to the guys that were there last weekend and the women. It was very, very, very rewarding. And we already have 2022 spring and fall schedule. But listen, if I was only interested in maximizing the monetary value of my institute, then I would have more courses. It's really a statement that is parallel to how I talk to you guys each week, because it's not the most important thing in my life to monetize it, to blow it up, because if it was, I would do more. But it is important to me that I keep it going, and this going, the podcast weekly, because I hear from enough of you that it motivates me to go. So thank you to everybody from all the places you heard me talk. Listen, I know you're probably sick of me talking about UK, Germany, Ireland, Canada, even Australia. You guys download more than anybody else, and it's appreciated by me, which is why I say it. Sorry. But here's what I want to talk about. So thank you for allowing me to feel engaged enough that I'm continuing this journey. But back to what I said 5 minutes ago. Yeah, so I want it to be like it's you and I, and you got this connection with this person you've met virtually through the Lionhearted, who I think is giving you a wealth of advice. Gosh, it is so truthful. It is so not exaggerated. It is so spot on to many of you that follow me. So the first thing that if we were sitting tonight somewhere near your office where you live, and I was saying to you, so what are you thinking about for 2022? Here's some of the things I would be discussing with you. I would say to you, what skill sets are you going to add? That's what I did, guys. Every year from my first year to now, I did it much more in the beginning. Of course I did. I was raw. You've heard me say to you that I went to Spear and Coy's before there was the Spear Institute. I went out there, I think, 19 times. It was part of a yearly curriculum. I mean, I went on and on and on. And I may have lost touch a little bit with what's the best course to take for this or that today. But I think I remain a pretty good source of advice if you want to reach out to me for those things. But in terms of not just where to take what, but what skills. I'm not going to spend the time, as I have on many other podcasts, talking about sedation. But of all the skills that I have acquired, it is the one that saved me the most. And those of you listening that followed my lead, and I know there's many of you because you write to me, and you got your sedation license. Hell, some of you got oral sedation and an IV sedation license. Kudos to you. It's what saved me. I'm telling you. And it'll be what saves you. Because I don't care how great you are at whatever aspect of dentistry you are now great at. Crown and bridge, doesn't matter. Endo, ortho. Of course, ortho, I don't think you need to sedate people for. But it lengthens your career, my friends. It makes better clinical outcomes because you control the patient more. Today, I was doing a patient that was right at the border of how far you can take oral sedation. My oral sedation cocktail, which you all know. Triazolam, Benadryl, Atarax, nitrous oxide. It's more detailed than that. And I was doing vertical bone augmentation in the anterior maxilla. And I was on. I could feel it. I know you guys can relate to that. Sometimes I like to think I'm always on, but I'm not. I think I'm always on pretty good, but I was above that today. And then I was losing control of her. The moans, started. And she was sedated. And it immediately, how can it not, impacted my clinical skill set? How can it not? So it's a gift. I mean, I don't care even if you tried it. I can't imagine one of you ever saying it's not for me. I just can't. And the last thing I'll say about it, because I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but can you imagine having done anything that extreme? Extreme, I mean, you're giving a patient 4 different medications, counting nitrous oxide. And I've never had, ever, one untoward episode that was a complication that I didn't know how to handle. I mean, I've never even had a complication that was related to the sedation. So I don't know how much safer anything could be. I've told you that I've once packed cord with epinephrine, apparently too much. This is 35 years ago. Patient had palpitations, tachycardia. I called 911. I've never called 911 for one sedation patient ever. So it's safe. That's one skill set. I would also tell you that what I always tried to do was blend yearly courses, like once a year, that addressed occlusion. Because a poor occlusal scheme will kill your best clinical work you've ever done. And you got to know what you can get away with and not. See, that's the whole thing about the Lionhearted podcast. And the whole thing is this. If we all practiced in a community, I go on Instagram, which all of you probably have more followers than I do. That is not a place to learn from me of how to attain followers. Everybody's cases I see, every single crown tooth in their mouth is crowned. And that's just not the zip code I live in. I always find that the majority of the time, I am in a compromised treatment plan. The patient could not afford to do everything I wanted them to do. And so, because I do have abundant knowledge about occlusion, I know when I can do without molars, or I know when I can do without certain teeth. And I know about group function versus anterior guidance and canine guidance and all the things that are probably not well covered in dental school. And if you're going to follow me, and if you're going to do comprehensive approaches to patients, sometimes that includes full mouth rehabs. I think the biggest case of that is when you have a patient coming in, and let me give you a patient that came in this week, and I really wanted her to be my patient. And I don't know if she will be or not, by the way, because there was no case acceptance, because it was an overwhelming case that needed a lot of restorative. Here's the case. You'll love it. So imagine she's an elected official, and a lot of people knew her and never have come to me. She's 61 years old. Comes in with her husband, just like you hear me talk about. I do what I tell you I do. And her chief complaint was number 9, history of root canal crown. Number 8 was also history of root canal crown. Number 9 was loose, and there was a radiographic fracture, probably right at the level of the osseous, of the level of the bone. And that was her chief complaint, and nothing else. And when I examined this patient, wouldn't it have been wonderful if she had a complete dentition? That does happen. And the only thing I had to address was number 9. I would have loved that. But that's not what the case was. That is why it's an impossibility for you not to do complete comprehensive exams before you suggest anything. And so I did that. Any one of you would have come to the same conclusion. She had a complete posterior bite collapse. In other words, she had lower molars, but no upper molars. It was easy for me to explain this to her. Now, I didn't plan on talking about this, but this is going to be good. So here's a patient that said all the right things to me. They've always wanted to come to me. They heard on the higher side, expensive. She said higher, I think. And they just know they need a really good dentist now. And this is my time. All the right things. And to restore that patient, and by the way, she had no available bone for posterior implants. And I had to rebuild her occlusion with full coverage. There's nobody anywhere that could dispute what you have to do to treat number 9 on this patient. You can't just treat number 9. Mind you, she has a natural diastema that she wants to keep. So 9's going to be an implant, which fortunately she has no contraindications for that. But this was a huge treatment plan. And I had the challenge of being earnest, which that's not a challenge. By the way, it was late in the day, and I just not sure I was prepared to have to explain as much as I did to this patient who clearly had never had such an approach. She was very intelligent and got me. But I sometimes people will say they get you, but because they're very polite and they want you to like them, and it's a whole personality thing. But anyway, the end of the story is that particular case required enormous knowledge about occlusion. Not every case does. A lot of times you can use the acquired occlusion. And all the pathologists or classical occlusal people out there will, send me emails or something, bad emails. But no, I often use the acquired position, and that's the scope of another talk. But yeah, I would take occlusion. I would get my sedation permit. Occlusion would be like the way I sedate people. That would be, so I give them 3 medications and I use gas, nitrous oxide, to kind of monitor and push the other 3. If they're really out of it with the 3 medications I give, then I use all oxygen. I use no nitrous at all. If they are too awake, obviously, I use much more nitrous. I never exceed, ever, 50%, by the way. So sedation, occlusion. We're in a bar, you and I, or a coffee shop. And we're talking about how are we going to make 2022 better? And I'm going to say, well, what skill sets are we going to work on? And you would have to start looking right now for the things I'm talking about. How about treatment planning? I'd love to start a treatment planning course, quite honestly, but I don't have one. And of course, honestly, guys, part of that journey, and this journey should be about a 10-year journey. And every quarter of the 10 years, you're going to get better and better and more confident and more confident. It's not like it takes 5 years to feel the difference. It doesn't. So you also should be constantly taking courses on, sorry to keep going back to it. He doesn't even know I talk about them, but the Spear Institute has the facially generated treatment planning. I love that. The facially generated treatment plan. There's courses on materials that you should be taking. What about your staff? Let's talk about that for 2022. So far, it's what skill sets you're going to add through CE. What about your staff? Right now, when you think about it, do you want to go on with the present team next year as you did this year? Could we be better? And that should be a giant question to you if key people in the initial engagement of new patients have questionable skills or questionable attitudes. If that's what you're thinking, like your new patient coordinator or the person in your staff that presents treatment plans, or somebody at the front desk that has a key representative of you, the practice, your culture, somebody that checks people in, checks people out, takes payments. I mean, it's all important. Your insurance person. Right now, I'm talking to you. We're in a coffee shop. Are you confident if I said to you, how's your billing protocols? Do you even know what they are? Right now, the person in your office who handles insurance, who handles the billing, are usually the same person. Are you completely confident of your 60-day, 90-day, 30-day aging reports? Do you even know what I'm talking about? I'm just saying. Look, it seems overwhelming, doesn't it, when I start talking like this? But the truth is, you fix little bits at a time, and you're always going to have to do this. So, the outcome is what I have, and many of you that listen to me have. It's just amazing business that you run, right? 4 days a week. That's what I advocate. And if you're doing 5 right now, or 6 because you're at that stage of your career. You're just beginning. Then don't beat yourself up for that. That's okay. But there is an end goal. The end goal is a business that you're proud of, that you can just palpate the people that are part of that patient population that comes to you, that the overwhelming majority of them not only come to you, they feel lucky that you're their dentist. That is, if there was a goal, that's the goal. And then it would extrapolate to the staff that you really believe that they're proud and feel fortunate that they work for your organization. I mean this right now. I hope I do if I'm saying it to you. I mean, that's what we're going for with all these things. And of course, that requires copious preparation. So the skills, the staff, do we have to be brave between now and next year and make a stand, make a change? Do you even have the parameters and knowledge to make the change? What steps are you going to take, and what is your preparation to get closer or to begin the process of a fee-for-service practice in 2022? Well, I can tell you what it should be. You have to have meetings, guys. If any of you are thriving without meetings, you just go in every day and you say goodbye on Thursday or Friday, and you come back and you start it all over again, and you're not having a morning meeting or a monthly meeting, I promise you that you're going to pay for that. And the way you'll pay for it is somebody will quit. You'll lose a patient. You just can't thrive unless you prepare to thrive. And the way you do that is with the 2 types of meetings that you always hear me allude to. And that is the everyday, daily, morning meeting. And the other one's a monthly meeting where you make bigger organizational changes. One of you wrote me this week and you asked me, I could tell that this guy that wrote to me is a very fine dentist. But he's struggling with the fact, and I can feel him. I know what he's saying. That, here he is probably doing very advanced care on some patients that come to him that don't have insurance. But then he finds himself getting paid 64% of his fee many hours of the week, and it doesn't feel good. So how do you change that? Well, number one, I've always said, you have to have the organization and skills, you personally skills, and the organization that you built that warrants that warrants enough people going out of network to your location, so much so that you can make a living that way. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? I didn't say to stomp out insurance starting 2022. I said, do it intelligently. I told you to get a spreadsheet, have a meeting or 2 or 3. Who cares how many it takes? Give that meeting an hour. Don't do it in between patients. Pay your staff extra or key people if you have to meet on a day you're closed, if that's what it takes. If you can get people to do that. We always met we had this block out productive time. It's kind of a double whammy, but I did it. And I did it for years, not once or twice. And in those monthly meetings, big decisions were made. And it's how we started eliminating the most toxic insurances. That's where it started. Well, I couldn't do that unless somebody in my organization supplied me with the information that, and I've said it to you before, it's kind of a spreadsheet on your major procedures, crowns, extractions, dentures, partials, whatever it is you do, scaling, root planing, root canal, and all the different companies that you accept, what is the fee that they pay you? It's very plausible that many of you don't even know that. And I get it, because just doing the dentistry is arduous. And often That's why I delegate so much to my team. Because when I'm doing the dentistry, I'm doing the dentistry. And I really want to be focused on that. And so I have to make these other decisions at a time. Unfortunately, for me, it was always bringing my staff into the office, perhaps on a Thursday for 60 to 90 minutes in the morning when we would have been working from like 9 to 10:30. I mean it. And I just bit the bullet. So that's part of me getting to where I want to get to. Seriously, I did. I tried all the others. I tried to do it after work. We never could coordinate all the schedules to end properly to do it. And, most people don't want to come in on Friday if you're closed Friday. And I didn't even mention Saturday, of course. You get me. If you're doing great, then you don't need to do anything. If you want to be doing better, and when I say that to you, I mean better hours, better profitability, better self-fulfillment about what you're doing, your clinical outcomes, your relationships with these patients, your follow-up on these patients. Guys, just I'm going to say one more thing. It's forever. I mean, I just had a meeting last week on how well we are or not following up on our patients' care. And it offends me, I'm being honest with you, because I take so much time to implement what I always call protocols that sometimes just fall off. People stop doing them. And I'm okay as a leader if somebody looks me in the eye and says, "You told me that, I stopped it, I'm so sorry. I don't know why, I don't have an excuse. I understand the importance of it, we're going to start it." Because when we've been in a big case, not for a single unit crown, probably not even for a 3-unit bridge, not even for a single implant. But we're doing major restorative work, over dentures, on implants, all crown and bridge. I want that patient followed the next day, a week later, and a month later. I don't think that's a lot to ask. The last thing I want to put in, and one of my goals for 2022 for you guys, is to have more continuity. And it's just, I don't have an excuse. I find it hard when I don't do these, when I come back week after week, and I worked all day like you guys did, to get right back where I was the week before. But the last thing I want you to talk about with me, if we were having a cup of coffee or whatever, is what are you going to do in 2022 to become more a part of your community? That's a big one. And it's an important one for me to follow up on. For you and your team to become yearly involved in something in your community is something you will never, ever, ever regret. I don't give a darn if it doesn't bring you one extra dollar, one extra new patient. It's a character builder for everybody that works for you and for your organization. Have a great week. Again, we'll keep this up, talking about how we're going to prepare to have the best 2022 ever. And you have to prepare for it. You have to set aside time right now for meeting time and then agendas on those meetings. We're going to talk about all that. Have a great week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week on the Lionhearted.